Hi everyone, this is Diane. I think I can say now that my patriotic journals are done, or almost done. I still have to put the beads on mine. But I can show you this one that's going in my shop. You're going to see this video on Monday. So I will have this in my shop at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday. Also, stay tuned if you're interested in creating a patriotic journal, because I will be putting a bundle in my shop. So I'm going to show that to you after I show you this journal. I mentioned in the previous video that I had packets to go, and I showed you what was in the packets and that there would be more. This is how much more is being added to the packets. There are the note papers, extra ones, a couple more pins, little pieces, like there's a couple of vintage labels in there, and some stamps, and those gummed flag stickers that I have. I'm trying to get one out. I gave you 4 of this size and 5 of the little ones. And some other things. There are some punches, tab punches, and die cut pieces. Lots of fun things in there. And just scraps of the paper, cut off paper, a bingo card. So there's more, and that's in addition to what I showed in the other video for the other journals that I did. Sorry for my voice, guys. I am getting better. I'm not doing too much because I run out of strength quickly, but I just sit still and work on journals. I sewed them together and did beads, and then I sorted all this stuff out. So I'm being pretty quiet, but getting a lot done. Okay, now let's look at the journal. This one is called Heroes, Heroines, and Holidays. I'm just going to call this one Heroes in the listing. I made a patchwork tie with some of the fabrics that I've been using. And I added some pom-pom trim to the bottom. I think I had all of this embellishing done the last time you saw the cover. There's some vintage stamps and an applique, an embroidered applique, a little button. This button is vintage, and then there's a silver glittery star. The glitter does not come off. And some plaid fabric and some pretty nautical looking trim there. And I added this flag keychain. Long may she wave. It does have used in new cars and trucks advertisement on the back, Wysox, Pennsylvania, and some red, white, and blue beads. There are 3 signatures. I'll put the measurements in the listing as well as the page count. The corner, this is a vintage book, so the corners are frayed, but I left them that way. And you can see it's worn looking. So it's a very vintage looking book, but I love the cover for a patriotic book. I covered the end papers, and I created these pockets on the front and the back, and this was a very vintage piece of paper. I don't know the date of it, but it was something you put on your car mirror when you paid to enter this show. This is a digital. There's a recipe and a little tag that I created with, this was cut from a pattern or a pattern book. It's a little hard to get things into this because this is pretty flat against the book cover, but if you kind of just get a corner in and get something going in there, then it works just fine. I made some patchwork or some fabric pockets. This one just has some pieces sewn onto it, and here's a little bingo card with some fabric and a little bit of crochet. And here is a family snapshot of a husband and wife, and 2, looks like little twin boys, and they're all dressed in military outfits, and I think the boys are wearing sailor suits. I think the parents are actually in the military. I did some stamping, some things clipped on, added some ruffles, just like in the other books. We have pretty much the same things. but the other ones were 1 signature, and this one is 3 signatures. I love all the vintage stationery and note paper that I had, and that was, some of it I collected, and some of it, a lot of it was actually gifted to me in Happy Mails. I'm so appreciative of the Happy Mails you guys send to help me out with the journals that I'm working on, or will be working on. This one is a National Geographic page with a Statue of Liberty. There is a child up there looking out. This is a vintage page. This is a vintage bridge score sheet and a vintage radio, like ham radio operator paper. Came out of a record book for them. That's a vintage star from the 1940s, a foiled star. Came out of an old scrapbook on typing paper. There's a flip. And this is from an old magazine. I just put it in there because it's red, white, and blue, and it's a recipe for cherry pie. There's a note card and some V-mail. This is a page from Polka Dot Pixels. So this is one of the pages from the, I think it was called Layers set. And I linked it in the other video. I'll link it to this one. But then I have another set of her pages that I forgot what it's called. Maybe that one's called Layers. This one, it's not Layers. I can't remember. So the other one has smaller pages. So those fit perfectly. This one I had to trim down because this book is smaller. But you'll see them. This is the back of that note card, and I put one of the Polka Dot Pixels envelopes. So these pages, this page and the one that I used in the other journals, where did it go? Right here. This comes with ephemera. So it comes with some strips, and I used some of those, and envelopes and some other ephemera like tags and cards and stuff, but I didn't print all of it because I had so much ephemera I didn't need it. But this is one of the pieces of ephemera that comes with it. That just looks like my childhood kind of, it's probably before my era, but you know, brothers and sisters in the country on the wagon and 4th of July and parades and all that stuff. That's what it makes me think of. I stuck a little decal in here of Paul Revere, and there's a carnival, Toy Town Carnival card in here. I only had 2 of these cards left, so I put one in here and one in my journal. This is part of the box from the caps. A nice red, white, and blue box. I made it a tuck spot, and there will be 2 of these tuck spots in this journal because it's a small journal and that's a small tuck spot. This is a vintage price sticker. This is the vintage calendar, so it has exercises for being ready for being by the pool in your swimsuit. This is a digital, and I stamped on it, around it. This is from a vintage catalog, and so is this little girl. And I added die-cut stars. And this is just a photo. I'm not even sure where this came from. I had a small stack of these vintage photos that came from a digital. I don't even remember. There's another fabric pocket. I added some burlap and sewed a button on it. And this is the booklet. It had some photos in it, and I added some pages that you can journal on. Digitals. All of those are digitals. And that is a vintage American Legion ticket for a sweepstakes or some kind of a drawing. I stamped that ticket. And this is part of the vintage polka dot. The Polka Dot Pixels set. This is a vintage stamp. And this probably came from this book. It's about Francis Scott Key and the Star Spangled Banner song that he wrote. Oh, and this is a sticker that came out of a piano book that I bought at a flea market. It had some stickers that the child had earned So I cut that out, added it here. Another vintage calendar, 1950. My Country 'Tis of Thee. There's one of those tiny little flag stamps. I folded this paper up to make a pocket, and this piece right here is vintage. This is part of Polka Dot Pixels, and this is cut from one of the strips. I had ordered a year or two ago. I got a digital set. I believe these are from Tremblay Letterpress, which I can't find on Etsy. I've always had trouble. Every time I try to find it, I type it in and it doesn't come up. But these, maybe not that one, but this and probably that July 4th part, some of the other digitals that you'll see came from Tremblay Letterpress. And I tried to link it in yesterday's video and I couldn't. This is from a vintage magazine, and this was a large card, quite sturdy. I didn't add anything to it. I think I got this in a Happy Mail. So here's some pieces that I cut off it. It was a nice big card. I don't know what it was for. It's not a postcard. But I just cut it into a tag shape and tucked it in there. Here is a card with art of the Washington Monument at cherry blossom time. And I added this vintage blue signal. It's a little clip to signify where you were supposed to sign on a document. There's another V-mail. Some more of the vintage flag stickers and the star, foiled star. This is one of the smaller pages. I didn't have to cut anything off it. This one is from the set called Layers, and I think it only has 5 pages, maybe. I don't remember, but 2 of them looked red, white, and blue enough that I printed them and put them in here. Or no, this was the big size, and the other one I showed you is the small size. Because on the big size, I'm not sure. I don't remember. I'll link them both below. The embossed stars and the typing paper. You can tell that my throat has relaxed enough that I sound a little more normal. I hadn't been speaking at all because I'm just here by myself. So it was pretty tight when I started out. This is a vintage flag sticker, and I stamped this, die cut that. It's, digital. And this came from a pattern book. This little cutout, and this is a vintage pattern piece. I stamped that. Die cut and stamps. I like this page. I had this one embroidered heart. So I actually ironed it. It was an iron-on, and I don't know how old it is. It's not very, if it's vintage, it's not that old. But I ironed it to this triangle-shaped pocket. I added this, and I just think it makes a striking page on that red gingham background. I'm not sure where I got this. It's a card cut from something, and a digital tag. That's from Tremblay Letterpress. Here's another card that was cut from something, you can see. And another small tag with ladies cut from a pattern or pattern book. Digitals here from Tremblay Letterpress. Betsy Ross from this book. This is digital, or no, this is vintage, and that's a vintage stamp. Vintage calendar with some trim. Yankee Doodle from a children's school songbook, and this is actually the envelope of a pattern. So this one has a little red, clear red bead on it. So I will be adding a dangle to the tab that's in the other 2 journals that I showed yesterday. I forgot to do that. This is from a Coca-Cola book about themed parties. some Coke there, but it's a patriotic looking party. And I covered up this side of the page. That's vintage. Stars and Stripes Forever. This is the story about Betsy Ross. And this page is from an old magazine. And this is a Tim Holtz card. You could collage on it or just write on it. I just made a little tag out of some scrapbook paper. This is Yankee Doodle. I'm not sure if someone sent this to me or if I cut him out of a book, but he's riding a chicken. You have 3 of the V-mail envelopes. Polka dot pixels. Here's the photograph, and it's those twin boys. Did I already have a photograph in here? Where were those? Oh yeah, I just tucked it in there. Okay. So you can see these are vintage red, white, and blue photo corners. And I used them all up. I got them last year. It was an open package. I used them in last year's Patriotic Journals, and I finished them up in this year's. So you can remove this and replace it with a photo of someone in your family if you'd like. But these little twin boys are adorable. This is an envelope from a digital, and there's another digital card inside. And this little pair is from a vintage catalog, and I glued some buttons to it. This is just a printed postage, 2016. There's the other side of that Coke page. Isn't that cute? And this is the other side of the Yankee Doodle song page. There's some more burlap with some more buttons, star-shaped buttons glued on, and I think I probably got this in a Happy Mail. You can write on the back of it. There's a little picnic basket and blanket here. And then we have the last cap, part of the cap box, and it's a double pocket here. So here's a scrap of the scrapbook paper that you can journal on, and a digital check. I guess, oh, this was part of the Polka Dot Pixels set, and I just glued it to cardstock. And this is a tag. She's from a vintage magazine from the 70s, and she's holding a cigarette, so it was a cigarette ad. I love her hair. And then on the back, we have a tag made out of a paint chip with some vintage stars and some vintage postage. And she's from a 1968 pattern book. And this is just a mail-away coupon in the right colors. And like I said, I will put the details of the size and the page number in the description box. 5 o'clock this afternoon, this will be in my shop. Now I'll quickly go through mine, and then I'll be able to show you the pack, the patriotic pack I'm putting in the shop. This is a wide one because I didn't want to cut anything off of that flower bag. I don't know how old the flower bag is, but that flea market that I went to the other day when I had no sound on the video, that's where I got this a couple years ago, or maybe last year. And I pieced together some fabric pieces for the spine, and I did a collage. I put the back of the flower bag on the back cover and collaged. This piece is vintage, and the pattern girls are vintage. Everything else is digital. And I folded the top of the flower bag over. And I cut chipboard to glue this to. So I'll just show you. This is what I cut apart to add to the pockets on the front and back cover of that book I just went through. I only had 2 of those. Some more girls from a pattern book. This is a piece of gingham that someone sewed X's on it with embroidery floss. This is vintage right here, and those are stamped. This is not a pocket. I just folded that part of the calendar over to kind of reinforce it. Vintage pattern book page, and there's a red charm there. This is from the wrapper of Dennison wrapping tissue. The wrapper was very, very brittle. I did not have the tissue. Just this wrapper was in a collection of things I got a couple years ago at the flea market. This is one of the digital photographs, and a vintage marbled end paper. And this is a vintage tag or receipt from a fuel service. This is the Polka Dot Pixels page. And this was from a vintage magazine. I love it. And my picture is the dad and the twins. Now, I told you in one of the videos that I was lacking one corner to have enough for all 4 journals, and I said I had a workaround for it, and this was it. I just put this butterfly down in the corner where the photo corner would have been. I didn't know what I was going to use, but I knew I would find something to put down there, and I found that butterfly. This actually is an applique, from an applique pattern in my pattern book. So I just cut that from the applique designs and put it with my patriotic stuff, and it worked perfectly for that. This is a digital, that's a digital, and I stamped that behind it. This is a tag that I made. And these tags, these big tags with the fabric and the red stitching around them, these have a napkin on the background. I didn't point that out before. This is a digital pocket and a vintage label. I think that's vintage. I think so. And I stamped that. Bingo card. So I did do some collage on mine. So if you have a bingo card in your book that I didn't collage on, you have pieces in your little packet that you can collage with. There's a note paper and this tag that I made. This is a vintage piece, and they came from a pattern catalog. And the next signature has this memo card I've had in my stash for a long time. And this page about flags from an old book. And this envelope, it's from a film developer. It's actually black and red, not blue and red, but I liked it for this journal, and I just tucked this Liberty Bell postcard inside it. 1951. And this was in my stash already. It came from an old magazine, but I had already glued it to cardstock. It'll make a cute little journaling card. And this is digital, and this is a vintage address shipping label for Railway Express Agency. I think it's my last one. That's vintage, and those are vintage stamps. August 1957, that's when I was born, right there on that date that's in the middle. That's my birthday, 1957. Now you know how old I am if you didn't already know. I'm not ashamed. Star Spangled Banner. I love this pattern. That's a digital. This is a red, white, and blue advertisement for insurance, automobile insurance. And I had to put it in. It was nice and big. I had to fold it in. Well, that would have fit. I may have had to fold the other side. This is from National Geographic magazine, and this was a painting on a building. Down here, there was a man walking. It's a big wall. And I added this from an embroidery transfer. And this is a page to order music books for piano teachers to use with their students. And there's a note paper back here. I have it tucked behind this, so I'm not going to take it out. If you've seen my little tiny baby chicken gummed stickers, they came in this. Baby chicken Abingdon attendance card seal. So they were used in a Sunday school, Abington Press. It has a little church picture there. That's a digital. So I had this in my envelopes, and I thought, well, baby chicks don't really have anything to do with the 4th of July, but I like the blue color, so I put it in here. And this is a vintage card about a flag. I love flag images. And the digital tag. And I like that you can see them through that window. And there's a skim milk ticket there. Just a card that I can use. And that's a digital. That was cut out of a book. It was a page number from a children's book. I cut out whatever numbers I could. And this is something I just got at the flea market last week. Know Your U.S. So it has information about each state. There's our Capitol building, or our White House, presidential residence. This was a record sleeve for a 45 of God Bless America with Kate Smith. I didn't have the record, I just had this sleeve. And it just fit in this widest journal that I made. This is digital. This is a vintage check. And that's a digital. I didn't like the way the edge looked. I didn't sew these pages together this time. I glued them. But I don't know. I just didn't. I was fine with it on all the other pages, but I didn't like it here for some reason. So I added this old red, white, and blue Grant's measuring tape. Grant's used to be like a 5 and dime store or a general store. They had all kinds of stuff. Here's the other side of that advertisement for insurance. I had it folded in that much. This is a digital of a check, and I included this ticket for the Statue of Liberty, which I think I got from Bob. I have some of Bob's things in here. Remember Bob that I talked about last year at the flea market? He always had those boxes that he would pull out for me to rummage through. I haven't seen him this year. This is a vintage merchandise coupon that came in a booklet for 1 cent, and a Cracker Jack toy. I think this was new enough that it was when they stopped putting in the plastic and metal toys and just had paper. And finally, here is the last Carnival Toy Town Carnival with the elephants. And this came out of a book. I love that. Like I said, I like flag images. A vintage sticker there, price sticker, and a vintage cream soda label. I'll probably cover this up, but it's the song Bingo. I remember singing that when I was a kid. This is a pattern page. I chose it because it had red, white, and blue on this side. And on this side, that's, you know, blue and white too, but I just kept the length. I didn't want to cut it off. This side, it's just writing down here, but these were the tall ladies, so I wanted to be able to open it up and see the full image. This is a vintage label. It's in terrible condition. It was torn. I just glued it down there. I can write on it. This seal test label came out of a vintage magazine. This is just a digital for dairy coupons, and these are digital. I'll just use them to embellish some pages when I work in it. Here is the fun tuck spot that I made with a die cut star. And it's note paper to write on. Looks like I have two there. And a stamped card. Oh, I also glued something over that seam. 2 list papers to write on from the recipe book. Now, I glued these 2 sides, but I didn't glue the bottom because I just stuck these scraps from calendar page. I just stuck them in there so I can use them in the journal, and they stuck right out here. So I'm gonna just go back in and stick a little glue underneath there. This is a genuine merchandise coupon. That's a digital, and this is a digital. It's a nice big one, so I put it in this nice big journal. I think that's from Tremblay's letterpress too, but I'm not sure, but this one is. This is a fabric flip. And this came from a book that someone was using to collect stamps about, or stickers about flags. And there's one sticker in there. Another 1957 calendar page. They look like they might be at a 4th of July picnic for the town. There's the other side. See, they're not, she's peach, not red, but that's okay. I really like the images, so I kept it. There's the red, white, and blue. And I have a blue and white envelope here that it was sealed shut, so I just glued it on as a tuck spot and added this ordering coupon. I just put a little bit of vintage trim here. This is a genuine ticket for parking, and a digital. That's vintage right there. This part is vintage, and these are both digital. And in the back pocket, I used another of those photo booklets for the pocket, and then I just tucked this in the back. That's the back of the top of the back of the flour sack. All right, that one is mine. Now, let me show you what is in the Patriotic kit. There are, I think, 5. Yeah, 5 of these stationery sheets. 1 decal of the Liberty Bell. 2 long airmail envelopes. This page from a book with a Norman Rockwell patriotic painting. It's Yankee Doodle. You don't get the Yankee Doodle part. This part is the new tavern sign, but you can see it says stuck a feather in his hat and called it macaroni. So Yankee Doodle's over here somewhere. Some stationery pieces. The rest of the napkins, I only used 1, and I put 1 in each of the bundles for 3 of the journals, so you get the rest of them. This is part of a bingo callers card. It's quite sturdy. And this is a vintage card depicting George Washington. I'm sure that is antique. This is an embroidery transfer, and it was very fragile. The wing broke off. So I glued it to cardstock. I didn't fussy cut it all the way, but you saw in my book that I took a shield shape from this embroidery transfer packet and glued it to a page, and it was to a pocket, and it was pretty effective. So you could have make a nice embellishment with that. The rest of the flag decals, you got a lot. I did not count them. There's a lot in there. This is a military insignia patch, and I was told it's from an Air Force division. Note card, that's not vintage. There's another decal, another note card. Some envelopes with flags on the flaps, and some used airmail envelopes. This one has a letter in it. I didn't read it. This is an unused one. This one doesn't have anything in it. A lotto card, several of these sheets, and this little booklet, Your Flag and Mine, 1917. It has information about the flag, and some photos. There's those twin boys again on the steps, and then this hot air balloon. And there it is way up in the distance. A coaster. And I tore off some of these pages to use, and I put some of these little pads in the other packs, but I'm putting the rest in this. Some of the Valvoline oil stickers, some stamped cards, the vintage welcome shields, and some of the 1940s stars from the scrapbook, different colors. It's another part of that bingo callers card. The little tiny red and blue buttons, star-shaped buttons, 5 of these flag pins, and this pin that says I love America, and a few pieces of fabric. Oh, I'm also including this because I got 2 of these, so that'll be part of this package. And this washi tape, which I've had and I've used, but there's still quite a bit left. And these pieces of fabric. This is a sort of a large piece. These started out as fat quarters, and I've used some, but this is a good size piece, considering. And then another scrap of it. And this one also used to be a fat quarter. It's a nice size piece. Got some smaller pieces here. So there's a lot in this little bundle. If you were wanting to make yourself a junk journal. I was thinking I needed to go and look at my flower bags to see if I wanted to include a flower bag that you could use for the cover. So hang on, I'm going to come right back. And I do not have a flower bag. All of those things have been packed. I forgot. So this is what I have for the bundle, and there's a lot there. So come to my shop. I'll link it below. Look for this and look for this. And I don't know if the other two journals are still available because I'm putting them in the shop in about 20 minutes from right now. So I don't know if they're going to be sold by the time you see this video. So you can look for any patriotic journals there. I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you're having a creative day. Happy Memorial Day. Bye.